Hello and welcome. Unique among the film stars of India's movie industry for her willingness to take on difficult and controversial roles, she's also made a name for herself as a voice for the country's socially downtrodden. This week on One-on-One, meet Indian film star and humanitarian Shabana Azmi.
The young girl born in Hyderabad just a couple of years after Indian independence was clearly strong-minded from an early age. Shabana Azmi had her most influential role models living at home with her as she witnessed the tough campaigning both of her parents undertook to give local villagers and workers a voice. It set her up for the life of activism she would take on as she grew older. As a young actress, Azmi hit the movie theatres with a powerful screen presence, debuting with the controversial role of a married village servant who has an affair with a student in the film Ankur. Not satisfied with cinema alone, Azmi developed an impressive career on stage too, and undertook parts in a diverse range of productions. Her marriage to the iconic Urdu poet and lyricist Javed Akhtar formed one of India's most creative and socially active couples, often hitting the headlines for their campaigning on behalf of the poor. And even though she keeps busy with movie and theatre performances, Shabana Azmi's passion is still deeply rooted in her work as a humanitarian activist.
Shabana Azmi, what a delight to speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're respected in a number of fields, from movies to intellectual and challenging theatre to social activism. But I know freedom of choice is something you really champion. You don't like to be pigeonholed, do you?
No, not at all. Because the background, the people that I grew up with really valued freedom of choice, because my father was a very well-known poet and my mother is a theatre actress. And of course, for artists, freedom of choice is the most important principle.
Now, of course, you're a little unique among your fellow thespians in that, apart from Bollywood, you've done Hollywood productions, you've done a lot of theatre, and I wonder, does spreading yourself across so many different areas make any one particular area suffer?
No, not at all. In fact, it adds to it, because I think as an actor, the medium shouldn't be important, whether you do television or theatre or film. The act of actually inhabiting your character remains the same, except that you adjust to the medium. And I think for film actors, it's really very good discipline to also do theatre, because that opens up their craft, and ideally it would be the best option for actors really to be able to do both film and theatre. So I consider myself very lucky.
How hard is it to be respected, if you like, or appreciated as an actress in India? I mean, has the audience matured, or is it still very much about the Bollywood glamour?
I think it's a very mistaken notion to say that, firstly, to presume that all of Indian audiences only like Bollywood is to presume that all of India is a monolith, which of course it isn't. There are pockets of people who like art cinema, there are people who like mainstream cinema, and all of it. And for me, as somebody who respects freedom, I really think that's wonderful, because I think all forms of art should be available and people should have the freedom to make a choice of what they like.
To what degree do you find that your reputation for speaking out and speaking your mind brings about problems in India right now?
I think what has happened is, because I think for a long while now they've regarded me as a queer kettle of fish. Not the least of which because I'm my father's daughter and he's a very respected writer who spoke his mind. And when I first came into the film industry, they didn't quite know what to make of me. But I've been there for so long that finally they've decided to suffer me. And so, in fact, I'm very happy that I am respected for speaking out. And there is the space, not only for me, but for a lot of liberal, secular people to actually voice what they feel. And that's very important, because that space is shrinking everywhere else in the world, but in India it seems to be more available.
I'll touch on your projects and your career as well in just a little while, but let me ask you about the kind of roles you take on. Is there anything you wouldn't accept? Is there areas you wouldn't touch on as an actress?
Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't take on a film that promoted the view that women should be regarded as secondary citizens. I wouldn't take on anything that reinforced communal prejudices and divides. So these are films that I wouldn't do and haven't done in the past. The only reason I would take up a film about a subservient woman is A, if through the film there would be a transformation and she became empowered in whatever little way, or if such a sense of outrage was created in the viewer, the feeling that this shouldn't happen. So it would really be the intention of the film and the director, which would make me take up a subservient part.
Let me take you back to New Delhi, India. You were born there a few years after the partition, and I wonder what you remember of your childhood and that environment at that time.
Actually, I was born in Hyderabad, and I was just about 4 months old when my mother moved with me to Mumbai. It was a very interesting time. My father was a member of the Communist Party, and he was underground at that time. And my mother, who never became a member of the Communist Party, still was a very strong supporter. So there would be long periods that my father would be away and my mother would have to sort of make do. But I do remember very happy times because we lived till I was 9 years old in a kind of commune like situation, in which it was essentially a large apartment in which small 225 square feet rooms were given to members of the Communist Party of the kind of Sardar Jafri and Cafe Azmi and people like that. We had a little strip of a balcony which my mother had converted into a kitchen, and there was a common toilet and a common bathroom for 8 families. Interestingly enough, the drawing room, the living room was called the Red Flag Hall, and that's how I grew up.
What sort of influence did your parents have on you? Because I know, as you say, they were, apart from being renowned and well known, they were actually strong characters, and I wonder what they sort of instilled in you. I know they were social activists.
My parents really taught by example. They didn't give us any long lectures, but it's just the life that they led. They celebrated India's composite culture. There was a healthy respect for pluralism, gender justice. My father, more than 65 years ago, wrote a poem called Aurat, called Woman, in which he asks the woman to march shoulder to shoulder with him and tells her that, you know, there is another heaven yet waiting to embrace you, which is not in the arms of your husband, which 65 years ago was really quite revolutionary. He also practiced what he preached. In the choices that his wife made, his daughter made, his daughter-in-law made, etc. And I remember them as being very, very happy times, and the fact that we didn't have any money didn't seem to play any role at all. But I must tell you that I was 7 years old, and I was in a convent school, and like every convent-educated girl, I wanted a fair doll with blue eyes and blonde hair, and there was my father who gave me black doll. And I thought he was quite peculiar, and he told me black is beautiful too. To a 7-year-old, it didn't make any sense at all. But you know, it was these kinds of very, very subliminal messages that both my brother and I just inculcated and became part of our worldview.
And of course, many people outside view India as a place where women are secondary citizens and second class. And I wonder to what degree your father, again, made sure that you and your brother were both treated equally.
Well, we were absolutely, by my mother and by my father and everybody around, because he was a member of the Communist Party, he was a member of the Progressive Writers Association, he was the president of IPTA, which was the largest theatre group, and all of them believed that art should be used as an instrument for social change. But to come back to what you said about, you know, people believing that India has women in subservient positions, I would also like to say that India is a country that lives in several centuries simultaneously. And you have people living back to back from the 18th to the 21st century. And India's people encapsulate all the contradictions that come from being a multi-religious, multicultural, multilingual society. And so it is with the position of women. So on the one hand, you have a woman president, the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Speaker of the House, the leader of the ruling alliance are all women. On the other hand, it's also a sorry state of affairs that female feticide is still being practiced in India. And you find that contradiction everywhere in India. And so it becomes difficult to make sense of it very easily because it cannot be fixed into a box. So you can't say, oh, this is a developing nation. It's much more than just that.
It's wonderfully vibrant, but incredibly complex too.
It is. So every time you make a statement about India, the opposite is also true.
Now, you graduated with a degree in psychology from the prestigious St. Xavier's College, and then got into acting. Now, where did that, well, at least into the film world and film industry, where did that transition occur? When did you decide to go and study?
I think it was predetermined in a sense because I was just 4 months old when my mother would strap me on her back and take me for rehearsals to Prithvi Theatre because we couldn't afford a maid. And so it was really, theatre was, the atmosphere at home was less cinema and much more theatre and much more writers, in spite of the fact that my father was a very well-known lyricist and also writing scripts. So I think at some point, it became quite evident that that's what I enjoyed doing and that's what I would do. So I went to the Film Institute and graduated from there. And I was very fortunate to be cast in 3 films even before I graduated.
Your first movie was actually also the directorial debut of the now renowned Shyam Benegal, 1974 movie called Ankur, and you received exceptional acclaim and awards, National Film Award actually for Best Actress for that, in a performance that was very controversial, one that was actually turned down by many of the leading actresses of that time. You were taking a big risk as someone just stepping out into this career, weren't you?
Yes, in fact, a lot of people did warn me that this mightn't be the best way to start my career. But I was fresh out of the Film Institute and really was very thrilled with the kind of cinema that I'd seen there, because it was the first time that I was exposed to European cinema, Japanese cinema, none of which was available in Mumbai at that time. You know, we just got like really old Hollywood films. And so that opened up my mind and also shaped my aesthetics. And so when Shyam Benegal's film came along, I just loved the story and the script, and I went ahead and did it. And that's how I've sort of dealt with my career. It's basically only on instinct that I feel that this is something that I like to do. And of course, the film became, well, very successful, both critically and commercially. In fact, it paved the way for the new wave cinema.
You also took to the theatre fairly quickly, I guess, following in your mother's footsteps, and you were touring, including with the Singapore Repertory Theatre Company.
And the National Theatre in London.
Right. But that time you were doing A Doll's House, Ibsen's adaptation of Ibsen's A Doll's House, and again, it was quite early on in your career. How did you adapt to the transition between film and stage? 2 very different skills.
Yeah, it is. But because I think because I sort of grew up with the smell of grease paint in my nostrils, so to speak, so I just took to it like a duck takes to water. And it was something that I enjoyed because, like I said, it's a different kind of discipline. It requires honing of your skills and ultimately adds to your repertoire as an actor. And it was a learning experience. For me, it is very important to try and do something, even if I don't know that I will be successful. My husband Javed always says about me that Shabana is unafraid of failure. And I think that's very important for an actor, because you have to go out, put yourself out, take risks, and not only stay in your comfort zone, because that's really stagnation.
So you mentioned Javed Saab. In 1984, you married Javed Akhtar, who, of course, himself is a very influential figure in the culture and arts world of India. And you're something of a powerhouse couple, actually, well known throughout India as a powerhouse couple. How do you complement each other?
Firstly, by never meeting. But it's
the
a fact.
safest way, is it?
I'm telling you, because Javed is so busy and I'm so busy that oftentimes we meet at the airport. But, you know, that's just a happy way of saying it. But the fact is that Javed and I share the same worldview. He believes in social justice, he believes in gender justice, in all the things that I hold dear. Because his father was a member of the Communist Party and also a member of the Progressive Writers Association. And we often say that Javed and I have the kind of marriage that people ordain to be arranged marriages, because the backgrounds are so similar. So in spite of the fact that there are differences of opinion, he comes from the large mainstream cinema and I come much more from the independent, parallel, small cinema. There are lots of things that we share in common, and we are good friends.
Including politics, actually, which have been a part of both of your lives. How did you find the world of politics yourself? Did you find it empowered you the way you wanted to be empowered and to do things and make change?
You know, it's very interesting that Javed and I are the only couple in India's history, both of whom have been nominated by the President of India to the upper house. It hasn't happened before, and we take some pride in that. When I became a member of Parliament, I wasn't sure how much contribution I would make. But the fact that I didn't belong to any political party gave me the freedom to speak out on issues of health, access to education, women, slum dwellers, all of which were things that I was already doing before I joined Parliament. But I came into Parliament with the experience of grassroots situations, particularly with regard to women and slum dwellers, and I think that helped me. And I was very fortunate because I was always given a chance to speak out on issues that don't necessarily have political overtures, but are important to be said, particularly with regard to the Human Development Index.
Interesting, because even before you became a politician, if you like, a member of parliament, you were already an activist. In 1986, you actually went on hunger strike to support Mumbai's slum dwellers there. And I wonder, I mean, you got to see the government from the inside. I wonder, in 1986, when you were doing this hunger strike with others, how you regarded the dealing with the sort of lumbering bureaucracy of the government.
Well, I think it's much more than just the bureaucracy. It's also the state and policies of the state that need to be confronted, and you need to get them to hear the voice of those at the grassroots. Oftentimes, I think the problem happens is because the policy makers are so far removed from those who are at the grassroots that disconnect leads to policies which often are harmful to the very people they want to be helpful to. So I think it's a very important space for people working at the grassroots to actually actively get into Parliament where legislation is formed and policies are made so that they're informed by the grassroots. And I think the fact that I came from that actually strengthened my position in being able to affect change.
And in fact, I think obviously your reputation grew very strong because you are not only just doing the mainstream Hindi movies, you're actually outside in the world of theatre, as you mentioned and we talked about, but also a couple of Hollywood productions, 1992, City of Joy, for example. By the way, how did you find that, the difference between working in the East and the West?
At that time, the first film I did was in 1989 with Shirley MacLaine called Madame Suzatska, which was directed by John Schlesinger. And at that time, it was a very different space in India because we used to work like in 12 films at one time. And John Schlesinger said, I cannot even believe that you can do something as insane as that. And the standards of work were very different because we worked out of an improvised script. We didn't even have a script. We had only a story and all of that. And India works with such few resources, and we work with the system always failing. It makes us really innovative and creative, and we are always able to, that's why we call ourselves the Jugadis, you know, we are able to sort of cobble things up together. So it was a learning experience for both.
And of course, you're not scared to stir it up. And a very controversial role you took on was in 1996 in Deepa Mehta's film Fire, where I think it was the first lesbian scene on screen on Indian cinema. And I know that you had great acclaim for that and awards, but there was also rioting, there were attacks and threats and so on. Was there any long-term backlash, you think, on your career for taking on that role?
You know, the film ran for 3 weeks really successfully. And the audiences had a very good response to the film. And then a political party, the Shiv Sena, which is a very right-wing political party, decided to take political mileage and pulled the film off the theatres and indulged in all kinds of violence, etc. But I must give it to the censor board. The film was re-referred to the censor board, and the censor board again put it back into the theatres. What happened in the wake of Fire being removed from theatres is that civil society responded with such a sense of outrage that a political party that had no business to sort of impress its extra-constitutional powers on the public. And they said, we're not going to have a party dictate to us, this is what we can see, this is what we can hear, this is what we can watch, because it has gone through the due process of film certification. And so there were lots of spontaneous protests in favor of the film. And I think it was really the victory of civil society that the film came back into the theatres. So in fact, it really helped my career, because Fire, in that sense, has become a cult film. And for me, what was important is when I was doing the film, it's not as if I wasn't aware that it would raise some kind of controversy. But again, I figured that not all of India is a monolith. And some people would be outraged, some people would be moved, some people would question, but basically a process of questioning would start, which is really all that art can do. You know, art can create a climate of sensitivity in which it is possible for change to occur.
You have a wonderful collection of awards, both for your acting and for your socialism, social activism. You have, you know, the Padma Shri from the government of India, the Yash Bharatiya from the government of Uttar Pradesh, and of course all the acting awards. To what degree do these you know, awards and these recognitions allow you to, or empower you to go out and do the things you want to do?
Well, a great deal. I mean, the fact that I have won 5 national awards for my acting, and the International Gandhi Peace Prize, which I got at the House of Lords in London, and the Crystal Award along with Michael Douglas, obviously gives you a lot of leverage. The fact that it is your work, not only in the movies, but also within the social activist sphere, gives you a lot of credibility and makes you reach powers that be, that respect what you've done and are available to you when you want to knock at their doors.
Who have been your mentors? Who's really influenced you in your life, apart from your parents?
Many people. In film, I would say my director, Shyam Benegal, with whom I started my work. He has been a huge influence. I think he shaped my aesthetics and the choice of films that I made. That in turn, the choice of films that I made also went about contributing to my image.
Your strongly held principles of non-violence have actually made you quite a vocal opponent to religious extremism, and I know that it's caused backlash for you from Hindus and Muslims and all sides. To what degree you don't believe in the concept of a clash of civilizations, do you? To what degree do you think is causing?
I reject it entirely, and I think it is a construct. We need to understand that it is a clash of 2 worldviews, one that embraces extremism and the other that accepts pluralism and tolerance. The fight to me is not between Hindus and Muslims or between the Western world and the Eastern world. The fight is really between a point of view, and it's time civil society stopped watching from the sidelines and decided that Hindus need to fight Hindu extremism. Muslims need to find Muslim extremists. We need to posit them against within their own community rather than against each other, because the extremist Hindu and the extremist Muslim are really each other's best friends and mirror each other, and the liberal Hindu and the liberal Muslim need to be on the same side. And if we understand that, then we'll get to the bottom of all this confusion that is happening.
But in terms of religion, what does it mean to your life? What role does it play in your life?
I was brought up in a communist atmosphere, so there was a complete absence of religion. But I think religion is a private matter, and it's too potent a weapon to be left to the zealots alone. And so it is very important to seek out the moderate liberal voices amidst religious leaders and get them to speak the language of peace, because I don't think that the world has a choice today except to speak the language of peace.
Shivanji, what goals have you set yourself, long-term and short-term? What do you want to achieve?
You know, I don't have goals that keep changing, because if you're looking for something as vast as social justice, it's not going to occur overnight, because of course legislation will help and fighting oppression will help, but ultimately it's also about mindset transformation. And in a patriarchal society like India, that's a long time coming. My father, Kafi Azmi, said something very interesting to me once. I said, don't you get frustrated when change does not occur at the pace that you want it to? And he said, when you're working for change, you need to build into that expectation the possibility that change might not occur within your lifetime, but must have the conviction that if you carry on working sincerely, then change will come, even if it does after you're gone. That is really my mantra.
That's a rare long-term view, actually.
Yes.
How would you like to be remembered? What would you like your legacy to be?
Woman, Indian, mother, daughter, actress, Muslim, all of that.
I wish you luck, Shabana Azmi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.